Isn't Uber amazing? Just think about it. You can stand on a street corner, you go onto your cell phone, you call a cab, and that's going to tell Uber servers where you're located, where do you want to go. Then it's going to find a cab driver near you, summon them to come meet you, and then take you to that destination and even give you directions there. That's amazing. And all that can be done because it can transport data back and forth. So, you see, in the physical world, what we're doing is we're shipping goods like furniture or clothing on trucks, and then we move them back and forth. But in the digital world, we are using data. That's what gets moved back and forth everywhere. What we use to move data is variables. And you can think of that as the shipping containers of data. So I want to welcome you to the Popcorn Robots Learn by Doing coding series. If this is your first time, I want you to click on a link in the description below. And that's going to give you a link to this lesson where you're going to be able to do exercises with each accompanying lecture. So what I want to do is let's copy this and put this into our Replit. If you don't know what that means you need to go back to lesson 1. Do you remember how to do this? How do we do this? You should know that. Memorize it. Useful. Alright. So once you do this, go ahead, you can pause the Replit to do this, and once you're caught up, come back. Alright, so let's go take a look at this code. Before you run it, I want to ask you a question. What do you think this will print out? If you have to pause the video, go ahead and do that. Ready? So let's go run this code. And you see that? It prints Michael Jackson. The name. How did that happen? So what happens is that line 2 and line 3 behave very differently. Even though they look very similar, they're very different in the way code works. Line 2 does not have quotation marks. So because of that, this is treated as a variable. So line 1, we create the variable and we set it to a value, Michael Jackson, the greatest singer of all time. Then we print name. But in line 3, because there's quotation marks around it, that is treated like a what? String. So when it's treated as a string, what it's going to do is it's going to print name, the word, literally. So that's why it's very important to understand the difference between a variable and string, so you don't make that mistake. All right. So let's go to another example of this. Let's say that we say age equals whatever, 12, print age. Actually, let's do this. All right, I want you to predict to me what this will do. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that now. Okay, now we're gonna run it. Did you get that right? What happens is that age is in quotation marks, so that's why it printed literally. Whereas age printed 12 here, the variable value. So what's the difference between line 1 and line 5? Give me a guess. Line 1 is an integer. That's a number. Line 5 is a string. So the big difference between the two is that numbers do not require quotation marks around it. And so this is gonna be very different than this. We're gonna go into that a lot more deeply later, but I just want to give you a little heads up. And so with that, what I want you to do is complete the rest of these exercises and meet me in the next lesson.